Will Goldstein here, thekingscourt.com. And again, chance to subscribe down there by hitting that button in the corner. Again, I'm a musician. You can always check out my music at thekingscourt.com or any of the links at my YouTube page, The King's Court. We're continuing on with this book here, Mere Christianity by C.S. Lewis. This is in book 4. He calls it, Is Christianity Hard or Easy? A perfect title for it. Because of the way the video goes on, I'm calling it Morning in the New World. So he starts off by saying, the Christian idea, putting on Christ as the Son of God, is the whole of Christianity. Let me just say that again, since it's such an important statement. The Christian idea of putting on Christ as a Son of God is the whole of Christianity. Christianity offers nothing else at all. It differs from ordinary morality and being good. You're imitating a person. You're taking that person within yourself and allowing him to transform you into a sort of himself. The idea we have before we become Christians is taking as a starting point our various desires and interests, then morality or decent behavior. The good of society has claims on this self, which interfere with its own personal desires. Some things the self wants to do, we call wrong. We must give them up. Other things the self does not want to do, we call right. We shall have to do them. So it's all about change. It's all about transformation. We are hoping when demands have been met, the self will get on with its own life and then be able to do what it likes. We are very much like an honest man that is paying his taxes. Well, and he hopes that there will be enough left afterwards so that something for him to live on. As long as we think that way, one of two results is going to happen. Either we will give up trying to be good, or we will become very unhappy. The more you obey conscience, the more your conscience will demand of you. Your natural self will thus be starved and will get angry, and angrier even still. In the end, you will either give up trying to be good, or you will simply live for others. I've heard a lot of people say that. When you're doing that, then there's always this sense of grumbling and wondering why other people don't notice, and then people feel like they're making a martyr of themselves. And the Christian way is really very different than all of this. And in some ways it's harder, and in some ways it's easier. Christ says, I have not come to torment your natural self. He just simply wants to kill it. And he likes to use that word kill. You do, and the scripture just say, put to death the old self. There are really no half measures. They aren't any good. So we have to start all over with a new self that's based on the righteousness of Christ. So in that sense, we are handing over the whole natural self. And when we do that, it's accompanied by our desires, some of which we think are very innocent, and even the wicked ones as well. And then Christ in return says, I will give you instead a new self. I will give you myself. So he's saying Christ is, or C.S. Lewis is saying, that Christ is saying, I will give you myself, the self of Christ. My will become your will. Christ describes this Christian way as take up your cross, but he also says, my yoke is easy and my burden is light. So Those seem to be opposing, but he really means both. Laziness means more work in the long run. So if you don't get to it, then in the end, it's a lot more work and a lot more pain and misery. It takes a lot to do what needs to be done, and in the long run, it's the safest thing to do. It saves you time, it saves you everything. You're just much better off in the end if you just knew what needs to be done, and that could be applied to all aspects of life. The almost impossible thing, it seems to many people, is to hand over the whole self to Christ. We're trying to remain ourselves, to keep happiness as our great aim in life, and at the same time be good. We let our mind and heart be centered on things like money or pleasure or ambition, hoping, even in spite of all this, to behave honestly, chastely, and even humbly. But Christ warned us that this is something that we really cannot do. A thistle cannot produce figs. The real problem of the Christian life comes when all your wishes, hopes rush at you. And the first job consists in letting that other larger, stronger, quieter self flow in. Only for moments at first, perhaps, as a new sort of life, now letting Christ work within you. When Christ said, "Be perfect," he really meant for us to do just that. He wants to give us the full treatment. This is the whole of Christianity. It's really nothing else. It is easy to think of the church as a place where you can become educated, or there's a building there and there's a missions project and there are services to attend and worship. But in a way, putting on Christ is much simpler than just thinking of the church as that. It's a connection more with what the church is all about, which is Christ, instead of what the building and the institution is all about, though those things are good. The church exists to draw men into Christ, to make them, again, little Christ. He likes that phrase. If a church is not doing that, then really it's just a big waste of time. What's the point of all the sermons, and what's the point of the cathedrals and the clergy if they're not doing ultimately what they should be doing? God became man for no other purpose. The whole universe was created for no other purpose. The universe was made for Christ. Everything is to be gathered together in Him. No one can understand how this will really happen. We do not know if anything lives in other parts of the universe that are millions of miles away from this earth. We have been shown the plan only, really, as far as it concerns us. Then C.S. Lewis says, I like to imagine how it applies to other things. Higher animals are, for instance, drawn into man when he loves them. If there are intelligent creatures in other worlds, they might really do the same thing in that particular part of the universe, in their world. We have been told how we can be drawn into Christ as part of a wonderful present that this young prince, meaning Jesus, the prince of the universe, he wants to offer to his Father. He wants to present to his Father a part of himself, and that is us in him. The only thing really that we were made for. When we are drawn in, a great many other things in nature begin to come right. The bad dream's over. It will be morning in the new world.